Hello, this is David Waumsley. This video is hopefully part of a series of videos I'm going to do on customizing Beaver Builder with CSS. And if you want to follow along with this video, just follow the link below and you'll land on this page. Then you'll need to try the demo so you end up with a logged in version like me. And then you'll need to follow me to this link, which is where to put custom CSS. And that's what we're talking about today. I thought this seemed a logical place to start. Now, with these videos, I am largely addressing the pro and agency users of Beaver Builder because they have the theme and the plugin. But if you do have another theme, probably not going to be a problem. Most of this will still be quite relevant. And really, I guess what I'm asking in this question, where is the best place to put your custom CSS and under what circumstances in Beaver Builder? So I'm really just exploring the options and what I've learned. So let me first start with where I suggest you don't put your CSS. This is, I mean, it's entirely up to you, but this is my suggestion. In the text editor, now this is generally not an area considered as a place where you put your custom CSS, but in effect, that's what you're doing. So let's just go into the page builder itself, and we'll go down to that text module. And as we know, it makes it really easy for us to change the font sizes with the options above here and to change the colors. Now, you know, this is fine. It does the job quickly, but it's also inline styling. And this makes it very difficult to overwrite with global style sheets. And that's really the beauty of CSS, is that you can, with a few rules, change the look of your whole site. And when you put this in individually here, you can't do this. So let's say I go off the shocking pink color and decide I want something else. It means that I'm probably going to have to go into all of the areas where I've put that color in, all the different text editors across the site. A better thing to do if you do need to do some local styling within a text editor is to actually sort of wrap it in a span tag and give it your own selector name. And that's exactly what I've done with this over here. If we're looking down the bottom here, you can see there's no styling applied. That's because it's done externally. And you can see under the text setting over here that I've added that span class, making it very different from this one here, where the colors directly added in. Okay, so that's how I can get control over that area, and it's probably a better thing to do, but I know, you know, with time constraints, sometimes, you know, it's maybe easier just to put that in there. The other area that I don't generally recommend is the WordPress customizer. Now, for the last couple of years, I think the customizer has become the area where it's recommended that theme makers put their theme options, and that's a really good thing. Beaver Builder does that, and with most of these they also put in an area where you can add your custom CSS, and exactly what Beaver Builder does. So let's take a look at that first. So I'm just opening up the customizer. Just let this load up a little bit. Go to code, go to CSS code, and as you can see, I've added some, and it's applied to this header one over here. So what I've done is, on this header one, I've put it in a text module. Under the advanced tab, I've added my own custom selector, which I've called CSS-area. And it's allowed me to style these independently with this. Now, let me just show you what's quite cool about the customizer. If we're adding in our custom CSS, you can see it's already giving me hints. I'm just putting some padding in, and let me put 20 pixels in there. As you can see, we can see in live the changes that are happening. There's also these little icons at the bottom here, which allows you to see the mobile responsive views, and you can also collapse this sidebar. So that's quite nice, but you can see already one issue, and that's I've put over the top here this comment, and it's going over to the right here. It means I have to horizontally scroll, and obviously if I add more down here, I'm going to have to vertically scroll as well to work around this. We can't increase the size of this area, so it's generally not a good area to work with. Maybe if you just need to put in a few styles, you generally, let's say you're working with the presets that you've got in the plugin and the theme itself, and you don't need much, you just maybe removing some borders or something. That's probably fine if that's all you're doing with CSS, but generally this is not great. The other thing I don't like, and it's kind of a bit traditional with me, it uses internal styling. So if you look at the source code itself, it's outputting it directly. It's not like using a style sheet that's external, where it's all wrapped up and there's a link to it. It's actually pouring out all the contents, including the comments, onto the source page itself. it makes it also quite difficult for you. Say you put some code into the customizer and it's output in here. It makes it quite tricky when you're working with a code editor to be able to find that CSS. So if you're moving from one to the other, you can confuse yourself quite a bit because there'll be hidden over here styles that you didn't know about and wondering why things aren't working. So if you're doing some serious CSS coding, I think this is probably not the area to go. And I've already hinted at probably what you should do, which is the traditional way, which is to use style CSS in your child theme. It's always your child theme, because if you use the style sheet in your parent theme, it's going to get overwritten when you do updates to your theme. And we can access that either directly in the file itself, or we can go over to our backend. Now you can't see this on the demo because it's blocked off, but you go under themes, under editor, and the first thing that comes up is the child theme style sheets, and they're the ones that I've put in here. Now this is not an area that's comfortable to work with. You need to be really good, fairly good on your CSS if you were coding here and could imagine what's going to be outputting on the front, because you would need to see it, you would need to update your file, go over to the actual page you're updating, refresh, and to see it, quite laborious. So most of us would use an editor of some kind, and this is the one I use. It's called Stylizer 6, and maybe I'll do a video on this at some other point. And there's all my styles here. It means I can just edit here and use some cheats here to speed it up, and also I can FTP mine, or I can just copy and paste this and plonk it back into this area and update the file. So that's kind of how I work, and how I think is the best way to work when you're working with theme CSS. And that probably covers most of what you need. If you don't expect to move out styled pages or to export your CSS from your page builder to another theme, that's probably the way to work. But these are the extra options that we've now got with the Beaver Builder plugin. We've got these areas where we can add global CSS, and it's designed to be able to add to your page builder styles globally. So you can export it with all of your page builder content. The styles come with it, and you can import it to a new theme, if you like, another install. And the same is true as well with perhaps the more handier layout or page CSS, where you can reuse certain pages, perhaps landing pages or just styles that you liked, and save those out with the CSS attached to it and reuse it in your projects. So I'm just going to first look at this. Let's go into first the area for the global. So we need to go into Page Builder, and we'll need to go to Tools and into Global Settings, and finally CSS. And I've added a bit just so I can show you. I've added this unique identifier for this top header one over here. I've got too many header ones, obviously, but it's just for mock-up. Okay, so there we are. I've just changed that to 400, so it's not on bold, and you can see that's made the change there. Now you might expect, or at least I did actually, is that there's been a global setting that it creates its own global style sheet, as we would do with a theme and that style sheet, but it actually doesn't work like that. So I'm just going to come out here and show you how it does work. And perhaps the best way to show you is actually again with my stylizer. So let's go over here. Now what actually happens with Page Builder is that each page that you create, it automatically assigns a new layout CSS, which includes all of the CSS needed for the modules that you install, and it also includes the global and the page CSS that you also input there. And we can go over to it. So for this particular page, it's created one called 244. Now if I'm on the home page here, we'll see one called 9, and I think on other pages it was 2000 or something. These are sort of generated numbers, so they're each unique, and these are midified and cached for you to serve up. So that's how it works. But as I say, it's got all of the stuff that you need for the content on that page. And second from bottom, well, actually, let me just turn that round. Bottom is what's ever put in your page, your individual, will be showing on the bottom. And second from bottom, if you're using globals, that will be showing here. So as you can see, I've just highlighted the area. That's the one we were looking at in the global. It's actually been put out onto this individual page. So it doesn't work in globals like that. It doesn't make one separate one that works site-wide. It actually puts any of those individual styles into each particular page for each page layout that's created by Beaver Builder. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so there's something else to be aware of, and it actually shows on there, this order that my program shows is actually the order of the styles. This one's actually just the font face for the theme, but the first one that comes in is Font Awesome. Then we get these styles, which includes all of the plugin stuff, plus these ones at the top of the cascade. And then we get some other ones, including Bootstrap, which is what the theme's made on. This one called Skins, which is generated in a similar way when you select all of your options. So it's all the theme layouts plus all of your options are contained in this. And then finally, we've got the style CSS at the very bottom. And that's a great place for it to be. I've put this listed here. Now, this won't be exactly the same depending on the theme you've got. I've noticed I looked at dynamic and it was slightly different. The theme didn't come at the bottom but higher up, and I think that's maybe why some people have had some styling issues with dynamic website builder, because it doesn't come last in the chain. But you know, with CSS, the cascade, the last one wins. So the style sheet here would have things that would win out over anything above it. So when we're working with these global and page styles, we need, sometimes if we're trying to overwrite anything that's in our theme settings or any below here, we need to make sure that that's more specific. Otherwise we might have to use sort of awkward things like the important sign at the end of it, and this overrides everything in the cascade. And I'm just going to show you by using the page one the important problem and why you kind of want to avoid using it. It's a really blunt instrument, which means it bypasses everything else, and we can see it demonstrated here. I've got two dummy buttons, both are being styled, but the second style is not showing on this, so this has got a red coloring on it. So let me just go back into Page Builder so I can show you this situation. Without hopefully patronizing you with this, because you may know your CSS much better than me, but hopefully it'll just be interesting. So we go over to our layout CSS /JavaScript, and I put this at the very bottom. I'm going to scroll down so we can see our buttons. And here we are. So I've put this one is the first button here, and it's got the transparent backgrounds. And if I take this off, you'll be able to see it's actually been set by the theme anyway, so it's an orangey color. There we are. So once I've removed this, it's allowed the second button styling coming in. So really, I didn't want to use important. It's getting in the way of other things sharing the same names within the same document. So a better thing to do is to be more specific. So in this case, I'm looking at Page Builder Content A button. That's all I've got, and this is just for the visited. So if I put in something a bit more specific to say that it's also in the FL module content, I can just add this, and there we are. The transparency has been added, and that's done the same effect, and I can get rid of my importance and not have to use that, because as I say, it's a really sort of blunt tool for the job. Okay, and now that's pretty much that. So let me just come out of here first and just talk about one other little trick that I did on this. I've put a little note over here, but if you're really observant, you might notice that this page is full of a different font that's different to the home page, or the one that's going to be generally applied to the theme. So I've overwritten this using the page CSS. And how I've done this, I needed to import the styles themselves. So what I did, a little cheat here, and this would be perhaps useful for landing pages where you don't need the header. Otherwise you would need a plugin to put this in. But what I've done is I've added, if I can just grab it somewhere in here, if it lets me, there we go. We've got HTML with no paddings and margins on it, and here I've imported the styles over here. I could have actually used it may have been better in fact to have actually used the link to this, but there's two options, but this works just as well, and I'm able to put this in. So I'm importing the Google font Railway over here at the almost at the top of the document. Obviously it's not going to affect the header because that's above this, and we can do this. This wasn't permissible, I think, in earlier versions of HTML, but in HTML5 it's perfectly okay to add that kind of stuff in the middle of a document. So normally we do it if we're doing a landing page, we'd be putting it right at the top of our document anyway, and that's allowed me to be able to style all of the fonts separately in the page, and I would be able to send off that page with everything intact. So Right, I think that's probably enough of me. I hope this video was useful in some part, and I'll look forward to talking to you in the next one. Okay, bye-bye.